the sooner you can get to those decisions, and they're hard ones to make, the better.
Okay, welcome back to the Marketing Playbook, presented by Details Interactive. Here you'll take away 3 game-winning marketing plays every episode to take back to your team. I'm your host, Mack Friedman, and my career has been focused on direct-to-consumer marketing, direct mail, physical retail, and digital commerce. This is episode number 32, and today's guest is Brian Berger, CEO and founder of Mack Weldon. Before we get started, a quick thank you, as always, to Max Branstetter of the Wild Business Growth Podcast for producing this episode. You can reach him at max@maxpodcasting.com to help bring your podcast to life. Let's open the playbook. Ready, break. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Marketing Playbook podcast. Today, I'm joined by Brian Berger, founder and CEO of Mack Weldon. Mack Weldon is a lifestyle brand for men that is reinventing men's basics with premium fabrics, smart design, and simple shopping. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
So we're recording at the early part of March 2021. How are you and your family doing, Brian?
Doing well. We were just remarking that it's literally almost a year to the day since we closed the office. Just been crazy to think how long it's been and how much has transpired. And it's nice to finally be seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. So I think there's some level of optimism now.
Your office is in New York City. What's your sense of people coming back to the office in New York?
Yeah, I think there's a general desire for people to get back out into the world and do the things that, were more typical before all of this. But with that said, I think there's a lot of things that we've learned about remote work and sort of debunking the sort of myths about productivity when people are working from home. And I think what that will result in is a work environment that looks different from what it looked like prior to this. I mean, we're not going to be a virtual workforce, but we're also not going to be, a 5-day, 40-hour, 5-day a week, everyone clocking in and out type of environment either.
So it's interesting that you went there, because one of the questions I was going to ask you later in the show, but we might as well just do it now, and then we'll come back to how I like to start the show. But what lessons have you learned in the business, throughout the pandemic, that, things that may have changed for the better in the way you manage day to day?
Well, what I've learned is that we have a really resilient and adaptable team. You kind of know that, because you're navigating challenges all the time together, but having everyone be able to go from hanging out at a happy hour in the office, clinking glasses, to celebrate the close of a quarter, to being, remote for a year, is a pretty big shift. The resiliency and the ability for people to really, innovate at a time when they're not able to come together has been awesome to watch. And it's, really makes me believe that a lot of these just sort of conventional ways of doing things are, always up for debate, should always be up for debate now, because, we've just disproven so many things.
Yeah, in folks that I've talked to, and I've seen it firsthand, customer service is one example where, businesses were so opposed to, having customer service people work from home, perhaps for a lot of reasons. They wanted them all to be in a call center under one roof. That's one thing that I've seen change. What about creative execution and you being able to, do product shots and other things? What have you had to change there?
It's hard in a sense that at the beginning it was very difficult. I mean, we were able to, the photographer that does our lay down photography for the website, so that we can actually put a product up and sell it. He was working throughout the whole thing. He's kind of a one-man band with a studio, but anything that involved multiple people and, lifestyle creative shoots, I mean, a lot of that was really on hold for a while. And you were sort of having to make do with what you had, on hand. And what's, what was great about that for us is it forced our team to be really creative. And we were able to actually produce some really, really significant creative during a time when we couldn't have any new shoots. We launched television advertising using, old video content that we had of customer testimonials. right? So now we've tested that channel, we're smart about it, and we can do, different types of creative execution now that things are better, but we never would have known that if we weren't able to do this test and we weren't being really scrappy during that time.
Great. So we jumped head first into the Mack Weldon discussion, but let's take a step back for a moment if we could. Tell me something about you so our listeners can get to know you a little bit, Brian, something that you might think is remarkable or fascinating about, either you personally or something that you've done in your career.
The quick story is I wanted to be a lawyer, but I also wanted to learn about the internet. And so while I was studying in the year prior to post college, I was studying for the LSAT entrance exam, but I also got a job working for what became one of the largest early internet companies called Excite, which became Excite at Home. It was one of the large internet portals they were called at the time. That really set me off on a career that's largely been based in consumer internet businesses, really understanding the business model and the ways in which you engage customers in a digital experience. And never really thought about going into law as a profession, but it was just interesting that I was focused on taking this exam to go to law school, and this was just like a little bit of an exploration. And what ended up happening was, really became the foundations of the entire career that I've had.
And so Excite was one of those early brands, which I remember. And then you spent time at both WebMD and Comcast. So take us a little bit through what you were doing in each of those businesses.
Yeah, so Excite, I started out, I was literally like, anything you wanted, I would do. It was my first job out of college. But the office that we built in New York City, it was a San Francisco-based company, was became the largest revenue producing office for the company. So it was largely ad sales, sponsorship and advertising sales. And then from there, I moved out to the headquarter office and was doing business development and some strategy work, some more like partnerships, putting, deals that were not purely based on impressions and sort of media spend. And then I went back to graduate school, to Columbia Business School, just to, it was a good time to go. The first wave of the internet was the bubble was bursting. I had this really great experience in this high growth company. I advanced really, quite a bit. And it was just a great time to go back and just fill some of the skill gaps that I felt that I had in some of the hard skills, finance, accounting, and some other things that you don't really get in a liberal arts, college. So I did that for 2 years, and I thought, the world's my oyster. I could pivot and go into banking or consulting or go back into, an industry type role. I ended up going to work for the second coming of WebMD, which was, at the time, it was being run by a guy that I worked for when I lived in San Francisco. He was the CEO of the company. I didn't envision going back into, consumer, digital media, which is really what the business model is. It's a content business, but the business was selling advertising and sponsorship. But it was a super cool role, and we got to grow the company and ultimately spun it out and to its own public, entity, which was super cool. And then I left there to go to Comcast, which was much more of a generalist type role. It was a strategy and development role where I was going to be responsible for, sourcing and developing acquisition targets for Comcast, companies for Comcast to buy that would be advantaged by the vast resources that Comcast had. Why I was interesting for the role was because I had depth of knowledge in, internet business models. I had some, the MBA piece. I worked in banking during my summer there. So there was, elements that made sense for the role. And for me professionally, personally, I really wanted to be in more of a generalist type role because I was looking at this as the kind of last stop on my journey to like entrepreneurship. And I felt that in this role, I would get a really good sense for how deals get done, how financing gets done, what the world of venture capital is like, and what it's like from the standpoint of like, a strategic looking at an early stage or high growth emerging company to acquire. I just felt like all that would be really valuable. And it was all of that fantastic experience.
So it sounds like you had a game plan to be an entrepreneur, and now you were trying to acquire all the tools in your toolkit to be a good entrepreneur.
I really did. I mean, that for me, it's kind of like a boring story, right? It's cooler if you're, Mark Zuckerberg and you drop out of Harvard and you live in the garage and you build the thing. and all before your 20th birthday. Mine was a little bit more of a traditional path where I really did have a plan all along. Like if you read my business school application, it really speaks to a career of like building skills and confidence to go off and do my own thing one day. So that was really what it was about for me, and very much a plan, as you say.
That's great. Mack Weldon. Describe Mack Weldon for those that might not yet know about your business.
Yeah, so Mack Weldon is a direct-to-consumer menswear brand focused on premium basics: socks, underwear, undershirts, tees, sweats, polos, all of the essential wardrobe items. And the business was really born out of my frustration as a consumer shopping for underwear and socks. I hated going to department stores. I could never find what I bought the last time. Why I didn't understand why there was no one marketing these products like Nike or Lululemon or Under Armour were marketing their products. And these are very functional items, and they really dictate a lot of how you feel and how you perform throughout the day. And everything that was out there was just like these weird sexually charged, lifestyle ad campaigns, and it just didn't make sense to me. So you had sort of product, you had marketing, and you had customer experience, all with like double negative in terms of experience. And I just felt, given my background, like there's got to be a better way to do this. Certainly e-commerce is a better way to buy these products. From a brand standpoint, there's really nobody speaking to performance and design and innovation in the way, performance apparel companies do. So that's an opportunity. And then making it really easy to shop. Like guys love, anything that's more convenient than going to a department store, sign us up. So that was really sort of how it all came to be. And that's what we do. We really just focus. We stay away from fashion. We stay away from categories where the sizing is really complex. We try and make it really easy for customers to get into a product. And then we really focus on trying to expand our relationship with that customer over time.
So as you think about starting the business, take us back to pre-actual launch. Bootstrapping yourself, fundraising. How did you get the funds to get going?
Yeah, I mean, initially it was bootstrapping it myself and really putting my money where my mouth was, in a sense, because I just felt that in order to have any reasonable conversation with an investor or anybody who's going to partner with you in any way, you really just need to have certain things, like it needs to be tangible in a certain way. So I invested my own money in a lot of things prior to actually speaking to a small group of friends and family and angel investors for that early part of of the business. But really it was about brand development, building out the website, getting the initial product line and assortment built, thinking about fulfillment operations, doing some early marketing and PR, and really just those bare things to just sort of prove it all out. And so, yeah, so I mainly funded it to the starting line. And then, we raised some small amount of money from angel investor and friends and family group to get to that, buy a bunch of inventory and actually launch the business.
All right. You talk about, your product, staying away from, fashion, being more of a basics business. I'm going to imagine that over the last year, your business has done pretty well as, people working from home and wearing the kinds of products that you sell.
Yeah. I mean, we, certainly we're in the right product category at the right time, certainly related to COVID. But yeah, I mean, we sell products that everybody wears, right? There's no more than 50% of our products, every guy has, in their wardrobe, and close to 50% of our products, like people wear every single day, right? Underwear and socks. They may not wear, at our price point, but it's not a product that you have to convince people about or like get somebody over the hump about, right? You may have to get them over the hump about, why should I buy a $24 boxer brief when I buy a 5-pack at Costco for that amount, but not the product itself.
As you think about expanding or growing your business, are there other categories, product perhaps that can be worn to the office that are in the future?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we've gotten licensed to do a lot more. We launched an Oxford shirt last year that's done pretty well. We have a really awesome tech chino pant called the Maverick that was scheduled to launch in April of 20. We didn't do a big launch for it just because we felt that the timing related to COVID and everything wasn't great. So we put it up on the site and it sold really well. And we're excited for that product to start to play a bigger role in our bottoms, assortment. We have some outerwear pieces. So it's not just innerwear items. There's other pieces to it that we're seeing really strong adoption for. So
Yeah, the sweats are really comfortable. I'm a customer.
nice.
My wife made me a customer. Actually, she
You got
went
to
on
get
the
the
site.
shorts now.
Well, it's funny that you say that. She and I were out today, and I told her that I was going to speak to you today, and that I really wanted to try the shorts. They look great. The site really gives some good perspective of what they are and the feature and function of it. So I'm going to give them a try, and I'll let you know how they are. Do you have a direct-to-consumer business? I enjoy connecting with guests on this podcast because it reminds me what I love to do: strategic and tactical consulting for businesses like yours. If you'd like to speak with me about your business and see how you can add a fresh set of eyes to your team, contact me at mark@detailsinteractive.com. Now, let's get back to the marketing playbook. Been fortunate enough on the show here. I've done low 30 interviews now, a lot of CEOs. I've not really asked people this, but how do you describe your job? So you're CEO, you founded the business. What's your job description?
Cheerleader in chief and conductor of the orchestra, traffic cop. Those are a lot of phrases I use to describe what I do every day. Cheerleader in chief is really just kind of, making sure that we're constantly rallying the team and making sure everyone's clear around what the objective is and really keeping them, in a positive mindset. Conductor of the orchestra is just, again, small team, good communication, but really making sure that everybody is kind of rowing in the same direction and is kind of clear about where we're going, parachuting in where bridges need to be built. And then there's traffic cop is just like, helping to make decisions. Teams do the best that they can, and hopefully we're creating some level of autonomy, but sometimes there are big decisions that need to be made. And so gather as much information as you can, and you help move things along by making decisions.
So you had this plan to be an entrepreneur. You must have had some perspective of what you thought it was going to be like. What have you learned that you had no idea you were going to need to know? And what's been different about what your expectations were?
Well, it's not as glamorous as it looks on TV. I'll tell you that much. Not even close. It's all the good stuff, but it's also a grind. You got to fight every month, every quarter, every year to, continually raise the bar. And that's hard to do. It's hard to do when you're resource constrained. It's hard to do when you're, having to look for capital and convince people to back you. It's hard to do when you have key employees who, may transition for one reason or the other. Like, there's just a lot of moving parts. And so the good far outweighs the bad, but it is definitely an endurance sport.
Any particular mistakes that, come to mind?
I don't think it's mistakes. I think some of the people decisions in the early days just are a lot harder. I think once you're clear that somebody's not working out or it's time, it's time for somebody to move on. Like, the sooner you can get to those decisions, and they're hard ones to make, the better, just because, the resource that you have capital and time are your two most important resources in a early stage, situation like ours, although we're not that early stage anymore. But in those days, yes, like, time wasted, you never get it back. Capital wasted, you never get it back. So you really want to maximize those two things.
Most of your selling today done at mackweldon.com. You have a store at Hudson Yards. Any other stores on the horizon?
We love physical retail is definitely a part of our plan. Nothing beats the three-dimensional immersive experience that you can have in a store. And we find that it's not only creates, really high quality, very loyal customers, but it's also just a great way to paint a much bigger picture for consumers. So the way we think about it is three buckets. You have like owned and operated retail, which is like flagship retail in key markets that have certain characteristics that we like. You have kind of retail light, could be, more of a temporary, type of pop-up type of thing. Or we have a partnership with a company called Neighborhood Goods, which is a collective of brands in some good markets. And then the third is just a more thoughtful wholesale strategy where we're putting our products in somebody else's store, but doing it in a way that is much more at scale than what we're currently doing, which is very like one-offs.
And I spent a bunch of time in businesses that were predominantly wholesale, also had direct to consumer and physical retail. One of the challenges is always when you're selling through other retailers is to control your story, to be able to tell your story in a consistent way. Is that something that you're thinking about? And, you've got a very tight story, you want to control it.
Absolutely. And that's why we've really avoided the retail thing. I mean, you have the story, you have first party customer relationship and all the data you get from it. You have pricing integrity. We don't do promotions as a brand. We have like a loyalty based, pricing model where customers can qualify for discounts, but it's coupled with other things. We never market anything promotional, even on Black Friday and Cyber Monday. We're not out there saying like 30% off. So that scares us a bit with third party retail because, it's such a big part of what they do to get people into stores. But I think we're at a point now where we can be thoughtful about how we approach it with some good partners.
Yeah, you mentioned your loyalty program called Weldon Blue. Give us some perspective of what that is. I am now a tier 2. I think that's what you call it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So that's good. But I'm interested in having built some loyalty programs and worked with some of them, your confidence that the program is in fact creating higher rebuy rate, higher retention rate for customers in your business.
Yeah, I mean, retention rates, reorder rates, and lifetime value are all meaningfully higher than customers who are, falling, just into level 1 or just first time buyers. So there's no question once a customer reaches a certain level with us that they have a much higher likelihood to be a profitable and loyal customer. And a part of that is by definition, right? Because in order to get into level 2, you got to spend a certain level. And so there's that. There's the implication that you're buying multiple products, so there's a lot, there. But we see just even in terms of repeat rates and lifetime value, we're talking double-digit percentage, higher than a customer who, even just, continues to buy like small numbers of products over time.
As you think about your actual physical website and the tech stack associated with it, as a shopper, I would say that, you can get in the store, you can find what you want, you can check out relatively easily. There's a lot of sites out there that have added lots of bells and whistles. What's been your approach to building your site, controlling the feature and function over time?
We've always tried to keep it really simple because we really don't want to distract people. Their time is way more valuable. So we've really tried to take as much out of it as possible. I think there's opportunity for us to educate more, to cross-sell better, and to do those kinds of things. At a high level, we've tried to keep things really simple. The one thing that we did from out of the gate and that we still do on some level is we have this application called the savings meter, where as you add product to your cart, you can see your progress towards the various loyalty tiers. So that's something that we did that we thought would be like a cool, like interactive application for customers. But we're rethinking a lot of that stuff and with a real mindset towards, telling better fabric stories, cross-selling better, making it really easy to reorder, those kinds of things. So that's all stuff that we're like in the midst of right now.
Great. Businesses like yours are marketing engines, right? You've got to be able to spend your dollars wisely. There's so many different places to spend your money, and as importantly, how you analyze the results and the ROAS that you're getting from each of these dollars. Walk us through a little bit about where you're spending your dollars and how you're thinking about the return on the investment.
For better or for worse, I don't know, 40% of our ad spend is still with the kind of Google, Facebook ecosystems, which we try really hard to diversify away from, and we have meaningfully. But just in terms of where you can drive scale and efficiency at the bottom of the funnel, those are generally the channels where you do it. So we're in that sandbox along with everybody else, riding the waves up and down. But we've diversified meaningfully into other channels. radio, podcasting. I talked earlier about video advertising, television video advertising, direct mail. These are all, very, very productive channels for us. And we look at ROI, we have a pretty conservative attribution model where we're looking generally at same session, last click attribution. We are moving more towards a multi-touch attribution model using our own first party data. So that will be really helpful because it will enable us to treat different media channels more fairly, I guess, and make sure that we're optimizing the right way. We know that when we spend money on television, our Facebook and our Google advertising programs become more efficient. So they're sort of getting credit for the spend at the top of the funnel. And so just understanding that better is going to be really important for us. But at a minimum, so we're looking at it when we can track a direct conversion. We're doing that. If we can't, then we'll look at it in total, right? We spent X, we got Y in terms of customers, and that division yields a number that is higher, equal to, or lower than what our target is. So we're able to triangulate against it, even where we can't directly track it.
You're doing some satellite radio as well?
Oh yeah, we do satellite radio, we do some terrestrial, but mostly satellite, all the news shows.
There's so many different places to spend money. It's
yeah, that's right.
And what about from a checkout perspective, payment methods for customers? Obviously, standard credit cards, but have you adopted some of the other types of payment methods that are out there?
Yeah, we have Shopify, Apple Pay, PayPal. We're not accepting Bitcoin yet.
Only Ethereum, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You have kind of a charitable program, Give Back, Get Mack, on the site. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's a program that's evolved. I mean, the idea is that the consumer apparel industry is the largest polluter of any other industry, both in terms of the manufacturing piece, but clothing also is a very, very large polluter of landfills. And so our point of view was well, let's figure out a way to, help people get their old kind of worn out products somewhere else to where it can be used, either repurposed to people, who are in need or repurposed for some other use. So that's kind of how it started. And we've evolved it quite a bit. We're now really treating it more as a customer benefit. So it's something that you get access to as a member of Weldon Blue Level 2. And if you recycle, we reward you with, some dollars in your account to go towards your next order. And again, with the same intention of in most cases, the things that we throw out are perfectly fine and can be given a second life for somebody who needs it. And even if somebody's monetizing that, selling it in bulk to a third world country, hey, that's better than it ending up in a landfill or having somebody, who needs it have to go without it. So, that's kind of one of the handful of things that we do just in terms of our corporate citizenship piece.
That's great. Good story. So as we're getting down to the end of the show here, Brian, we do this 2-minute drill. I've got 7 questions for you.
Yeah.
First, 1 or 2 words that comes to mind, okay?
All right.
First one, a brand that you admire or that inspires you other than Mack Weldon.
Patagonia.
Okay, that's 2 shows in a row now with Patagonia coming up.
Really?
Interesting. Yep. Favorite app on your phone?
Favorite app? I think it's my podcast app.
Okay. The last website other than Amazon or Mack Weldon that you shopped from?
La Colombe Coffee.
Okay. Something that you're not good at, but that you wish that you were?
I'm not good at saying no.
Okay. Charitable organization that you're passionate about?
City Year.
Okay. If you had one superpower, what would it be?
To fly.
And lastly, other than your family, what's your most prized possession?
Other than my family, so many things. I'm going to go with my Cervelo road bike. How about that?
Okay, sounds good. Brian, this was great. Where can people reach out to you on social media if they would like to?
Yeah, it's bberger3 on Twitter and Brian_Berger_ on Instagram. That's mainly where I hang out.
Okay. Well, look, thank you for taking the time. Interesting story. I suggest everybody get out there and try some Mack Weldon product. I know you'll enjoy it. Brian, best of luck to you for continued success.
Thank you so much. It was really great spending time with you, and I look forward to staying in touch.
That's it. Today's game ball goes to Brian Berger for coming on the Marketing Playbook. To me, today's 3 game-winning marketing plays were as follows. Number 1, Brian spoke about how capital and time are 2 limited resources that you have while you're running a business. It's not always easy to make changes to your team, but once you've decided that someone is not working out, you need to make the change. Nobody ever likes to terminate an employee, but you cannot ever get back that time that you might be spending on someone who's not a fit for your team. Number 2, what does the CEO really do? It's not always the glamour role. You have to be the cheerleader, the traffic cop, the conductor of the orchestra. Your job changes each day, but in the end, you're there to support the team and help facilitate the work that they need to do. And number 3, conventional ways of doing things should always be up for debate. If we learned anything in this last year, we need to be able to pivot and work within the limitations that we have. Mack Weldon was able to test into new marketing channels, leveraging the content that they had, and now, with the ability to execute better creative, they're poised to take advantage of what they learned. We need to continue to challenge ourselves, even without a pandemic pushing us to do so. Thank you, Playbook marketers, for listening to another episode. If you want to check out more pages of the Marketing Playbook, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast spot and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. You can also follow us on Twitter at Details Interact and learn more at detailsinteractive.com. Until next time, the devil is in the details.